everyone, and welcome to Crew Talk, brought to you by Shoots.video. Happy Wednesday. I'm Susan Anzalone, along with my co-host, John Daly.
And Susan, thank you. And hi, everyone. We are the producers of Undercover Jet Setter, a travel, food, wine, mixology, and golf show, all shot off the iPhone.
And we are filling in for Sarah Marintz, who couldn't be with us today, but hopefully we will do as good a job as she does.
We will try our best. Now, today we're going to talk about cameras, which ones to use, which ones are better for what kind of a shoot.
And we have a great panel of experts who know far more about the subject than we do.
Now, if you have any questions, type them in the chat box or the Q&A below. We will get to them, and later we will have a trivia question. The right answer gets a prize, too.
So let's get started by introducing our amazing panel. Let's kick it off with Glenn.
So
Glenn, go ahead.
I'm a freelance videographer and photographer out in Florida. I do everything from weddings to real estate to YouTube, and yep, out here in the Jacksonville area.
All right, and next, Sergey.
I am a director of photography and Steadicam operator in New York, and I work on features, music videos, commercials, branded art films, so kind of almost everything.
All right, great. And how about you, Bruce?
Hi, I'm Bruce Lundin, and I run Light Raves. I do documentary cinematography, primarily for a show called Visionaries on PBS.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. And Sahir, how about you?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sayer Champion. I have a company called S7 Studios. We're a full-service production and creative shop specializing in commercials, music videos, as well as branded content, and also working in longer format stuff such as features, documentaries, and anything dealing with streaming content.
All right, awesome. And next we're going to go to Kevin.
Hey, Kevin here. I have a same kind of thing as Sahir, honestly. A lot of music videos, specializing in bands, did the big pivot to some larger format streams out in the field and doing live broadcasting and that, and then music videos and a lot of festival work when that was a reality.
Fantastic. Okay, next we will go to Matthew.
Hi, everybody. I'm Matthew. I'm the founder of Gear Focus. Gear Focus is an online marketplace to buy and sell camera gear, and it was made by creatives for creatives. I'm a photographer and filmmaker, and I can guarantee you I'm not as experienced as a lot of these gentlemen on the panel as far as the video and filmmaking goes, because photography is my background, but I own Gear Focus Marketplace.
Awesome. Okay, and last but not least, we will go to Enrique.
Hey there, my name is Enrique. I run a production company called Meza Films, and we've specialized mostly in commercial production. So a lot of it is branding, companies, social media, things like that, but all of it in the commercial space.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, John, would you like to kick us off with some questions?
Yeah, let's get going. So what new camera are you most excited about? Who wants to jump in here first?
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Sayer again. Sorry about that, Sergey. Currently, I'm just a nerd when it comes to cameras and tech gear and stuff like that. So anything that comes out, I have to try it and test it and see what its limitations as well as its advantages are. Because for me, doing projects that start in small, like no budget all the way up to $1 million commercials and features, there's a camera that fits each and every circumstance. So for me, currently, I shot with the Red Komodo and the Red Gemini about 2 weeks ago, and then I have a shoot this weekend. And I'm really excited about testing the Komodo and pushing the boundaries, finding out about the 120 frames at 2K, which obviously gives a very much cropped sensor. So what would be a wide shot would be a close-up, but I'm really, really excited about the flexibility and portability of working with such a camera with such great resolution.
Funny, I would have mentioned the same camera because I haven't used it, but it's pretty amazing for the price, everything they've put in there. And with accessories, you can go anywhere from a little portable camera to, with accessories, you can use it as a full camera and put it on a Steadicam and all these things you use. So it's actually pretty amazing what you can do now and then with very little, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, to jump in, I purchased one. So I got on the list that we've been using it in our production. So we have a helium that we have for our production, in-house. And then we ended up buying the Komodo as a secondary camera. And you're totally right. I think the portability, the small factor, we're keeping it very slimmed down and just doing overheads or things like that just make it super portable and compact. They did Canon introduced a speed booster that even gave it that full frame look. So you have, when you're talking about crops and stuff, I think that's the thing that we've been messing with, because a 2K crop on that sensor, it's not that it's not usable, but I think it's like, it's not the greatest thing. You're kind of really missing out on some stuff. So when you put in that speed booster that Canon just came out with, we bought it as well, and like it's been nice to kind of have that wider field. So your 35 or 50 is not getting cropped down to like 100 or whatever. You still have some usable real estate in the frame and stuff. So it's been nice.
All right, anybody else?
For me, I think. No, sorry, you go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've used the Komodo a few times, and it's been a blast. And the one I've been playing with more lately is the 12K Ursa, which is just a different machine. Like it's just its own weird thing. It's super unique so far. I've done 5 main shoots with it, and it's held up great. It's just getting used to the media is the only thing that's been hard, but it's been fun having that ability. Like I did one shoot in 8K and for a 4K delivery, and having that crop actually saved several shots for me. Wow. Because we were doing a shoot that was at sunset, so we had that one chance, and talent had some issues, so we used that in our favor.
Awesome. So I would have to say that I agree with Kevin. That's what I was going to say was the Ursa Mini Pro 12K. I haven't actually used it, but mainly I like the fact that Blackmagic always disrupts the market. I mean, the fact that they've come out with a 12K sensor, a brand new sensor that's geared towards their B-roll, and what they're offering at their price point, I think that's amazing, and it's definitely going to affect the rest of the market. So that's the one that excites me.
Yeah. The one thing I'll add on there that people may have not realized, and this is because I've used it, several times now, and I don't have a lot of friends that have, because it's just so new, is when you go down to 4K, you still get the full sensor readout without cropping in RAW, which is kind of a whole new world. Yeah, that was a trip. Like, I mean, when you go to the super high frame rates, it still crops, like it does 4K 220, I think, but yeah, if I'm doing 8K RAW, 12K RAW, or 4K RAW, it's still the full Super 35 readout regardless, which is just unheard of in any other camera that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I mean, the issue for me with Blackmagic, because I also went out and bought a 6K, which is freaking great. I mean,
I have one right there.
You probably got a couple of them, right?
Yeah, the Pocket 4Ks and 6Ks have been such good. Because I have a studio back there, and it's just such good for throwing it up. It's quick, it works, it's done. Sorry, I just overtook your conversation.
No, I mean, this is totally the conversation we're having, right? About the gear and the accessibility and the ease and the convenience, because a lot of the times, run and gun shoots are kind of where everything is kind of headed towards. It's like you don't have, a big budget to be elaborate and do these motion control shots. So it's like, grab the camera, go kind of thing in a lot of scenarios. Yeah. And the smaller, more compact, portable, easy to use, like Blackmagic's menu is awesome compared to the Sony. I do like the Sony family, but it's a little bit confusing if you're not like a full DP, which I'm not at all. And, so when I'm messing with the menus and stuff, it's confusing, as opposed to Blackmagic. It's like, bam, it tells you what frame rate, tells you what sensor. Very simple, very easy to use, and very streamlined.
Yeah, it feels like it's like an iPhone. That's how I see it. It's like I feel like they took the iPhone menu and just like made it in a camera.
Yeah, and they keep it the same across the board. So whether you're using 4K, 6K, or 12K, you can easily jump from one to the other and be able to make the adjustments you need.
Absolutely.
We have a question in the chat from Andrea. I think it's pronounced Andrea, hopefully. Is there a cheaper alternative to the Blackmagic?
I can run with that one real quick. And Andrea, can you elaborate a little more? Because like the Pocket 4K is their cheapest prosumer option. I think right now it's $12.95, or do you mean something on a less expensive realm than that? I'm just curious to exactly what you're asking. Okay, so less. Anyone? Less than $12.95. What's your go-to?
Buy it used.
Yeah.
Yeah. At that point,
I mean,
like,
I'll jump in, selfless promotion, but really gear is changing at the fastest rate ever. Turnover of gear, it's so fast. We're all talking about 12K, 8K. I've got the 8K R5 Canon. I'm a Canon guy, so this is what I know, right? Sherry, you were saying Sony's confusing.
Yeah.
Like I'm an old cat, man. I don't want to learn a new menu system. I like my Canon menu. Please don't change it, Canon. But it works for me, right? And to answer the question about price, because this new gear is coming out, the 6K comes out, the 12K comes out. The 4K you could pick up used. They sell really a lot on Gear Focus for like $700. You can pick a used one up. And sometimes, under $1,000 with lens and cage and accessories, extra batteries and things like that. I think that's the greatest thing about these manufacturers pushing the envelope. So like we all talked about Komodo, I own the Stormtrooper. So I was on the first list. We have to thank companies like Zcam,
yes,
who came in and disrupted the industry by throwing something out there and forcing manufacturers to be like small and portable.
Right.
That's what people need, right? Throw it on a gimbal, grab and go. I never have time with the stuff that I do for our YouTube channel and stuff like that. I don't have time to even barely put it on a gimbal,
Right.
hook up a whole rig, right? And I'm no cinematographer or professional in that era. So I think that, to answer that question, think about the fact that you could buy used, because someone like yourself, right? You said I'm constantly testing new gear.
Right.
You're going to test new gear. It might not work for you. And it's the same with somebody who's just starting out. They go and they buy this brand new camera. They use it for a couple of months. They realize it doesn't fit their flow, and they sell it to upgrade to the latest Sony A1. I'll just drop that.
Well, another strategy also is, you could always partner up with friends or whomever are fellow filmmakers. And, I highly urge and suggest people, because, the prices, like Matthew was saying, it's like everything new keeps coming out. By the time you get to really master the camera, there's already something else out. And I would highly recommend collaborative groups and collectives to pool their money and resources together. So now, if you were to get the Blackmagic 6K, which body is about 2K, if you got 3 friends, you split it and it's like $700, and then you just start getting little accessories, little by little, and then it becomes more affordable as opposed to this big daunting overhead task.
Yeah, when I early on started, like I had a couple friends, that I worked with. Like I'm like, hey, I'm gonna buy, like we all have like small cameras, or we had like a light, just little pieces. Like, hey, I'll buy this. Don't let me know. Don't buy anything unless you talk to me first, because if I already have it, borrow mine, and then I'll do the same for you. And eventually, we had like a small pool of gear. It's like, cool, we have like $5 to $10 grand of gear that we all feel like we spent almost nothing on, because there's just a slow build as time goes. And just, hey, let me borrow that. Hey, I'll give you $50 instead of renting it from another site for 200. Like it was kind of, that small network can go such a long way.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say on the note too of buying gear and the latest and greatest thing always coming out right around the corner, goes back to the iPhone analogy. New one every 6 months. But it's always good to look at the reputation of the company as far as updates and how they're keeping the camera competitive. Because like I have the Panasonic S1, I love that camera. It's a full frame sensor, and any day now they're going to upgrade it to 5.9K RAW. And they're taking a 2-year-old camera and making it competitive with cameras that are $4,000 today.
So
Right.
I want to add a few more things about when you buy a camera. I think it's important to look at what you want to use it for, also physically, and also your workflow. And I mean physically, like if you want to put on a Steadicam, some cameras are terrible. Like a Canon C300 might be a great documentary camera, but it's terrible on a Steadicam because it's got one screw and it just moves around. Same thing, the Blackmagic with the Canon mount is a mess because the mount is not rigid. PL mount might be different. I had one job with it, and the lens is always moving because I put focus motors on it. So what's great for one application might not work for another. And then the other thing to look at is post. Like almost everybody colors in DaVinci. So you want to make sure whatever format you're on, it's supported in DaVinci, so that when you're done, they don't say, oh, we can't do this. You're going to have to transcode it first. So these are, you want to always look at the whole picture of what you want to do, and before you like get a camera.
And if you're not sure, I'd say just rent one at the start too. Like, if you, I mean, I've done that before. I wanted to buy something like, I don't know, I'm going to rent it for the weekend on ShareGrid for $150. And I'm like, I hate this thing. Now I'm not going to buy it. And then I just, save that headache. And we've all done that. Like, I'm sure with lenses, especially. I've tested out so many lenses that way, just over time.
I'm out on the job with 5 cameras. I think I own every GoPro from the first one to 9, and they all have different things. I need to be able to wake up from a dead sleep and hit the record button. And so for me, the GoPros are all set up that way. I have Sony cameras because I can switch the lenses with Sony lenses. I would love to have a Venice. I can't afford it. My pick would be to get an FX9. It's got all the ins and outs that I need without having to mess with other accessories. I can pull it up and shoot it right away. It's got the same color science as the Venice. I can switch lenses with the A7R that I've got in my other pocket, and it's quick and easy, and it looks good, and it's not kludgy. I don't have to put a package together. It's just going to work. So, and for Andrea, I would consider a Sigma FP. Yeah. I don't know how many other people are looking on the people at the cinematography mailing list, CML, are loving that camera. You can get Leica lenses with it. I think it's not expensive. It would be a cool way to start learning.
And we do have a question from Don in the chat. He says, thoughts on the Micro Four 3 versus CMOS versus full frame, etc.
Now that's a discussion.
Yeah. That's a whole other topic.
Who wants to take each sensor?
Can I take a stab at just initial response to get it going? So when I went to school for photography, I'm a photographer. I wanted to get into video, and I bought the GH4 Micro Four Thirds. So I went with Micro Four Thirds. But I had a Canon 6D. I still own it. That camera is magical for photography, and it's full frame. The GH4 that I upgraded to GH5, phenomenal camera, right? I mean, 4K 60. It's got all the bells and whistles, and there's benefits to the 4/3 sensor. Like, I threw a 100 to 300 millimeter lens on that thing, and I was like, FBI agent filming people like a 1200 millimeter equivalent lens. But I always struggled because I knew full frame so much that I got so much light, and everything I do is low light. I never bring lights. It's all natural light stuff that I do. So I struggled with the low light. Someone mentioned they own the full frame S1, right? Yeah. Reed, right? Glenn? Yeah. I thought about upgrading to that, but I have so much Canon glass. So I think the question also comes down to not just the sensor, but what type of work are you doing? Do you really do a lot of low light? Do you really need the 35 millimeter or a full frame sensor? Or can you get away with the Micro Four Thirds? Because it's really a fantastic system. I mean, it really comes down to what are you going to use it for? How are you going to use it the most? And
just general rule of thumb, budgeting. Micro Four lenses are cheaper than Super 35 lenses, and Super 35 lenses are cheaper than full frame. It can be a pretty wild scale when you get to that higher end.
Yeah, especially depending on what system you go with, because Micro Four Thirds, obviously, there's hundreds of lenses out there. Lots of different manufacturers make them, but when you go to something like the L mount with the S series from Panasonic, there's not a whole lot of lenses out there. And so if you want a good lens, you're going to pay a lot for it. But, it really comes down to what's your budget, what kind of, system do you need? What are you going to be using it for?
You talked about lenses too. And when I got the GH5, I was big, like, Canon FD lens shooter. And I actually have my 50 millimeter 1.4 on my R5 right now. But this was my setup with my GH5 for like 2 years.
Is that an FD lens?
This is FD.
Yeah.
Those are fun.
Yeah. So, and it's declicked, you know.
Sweet.
But that was, I read an article. I remember there was a guy that was like all about FD lenses with the GH5. He had a whole website. And that guy was mad. But I learned so much about it. And it was so fun to buy vintage lenses and adapt them. And that's a benefit of the Micro Four Thirds system. And now mirrorless, being able to adapt, you know, vintage lenses.
Yeah, because I use quite a few FD lenses on my full frame and my Micro Four Thirds. So it's cool to have a system that you can swap lenses back and forth and be able to use them across the board.
Yep.
I mean, people don't realize how important the glass is versus the camera. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people put more emphasis on the camera body when in actuality, if you use a vintage lens, it's gonna look amazing. It's gonna look like something that no one's ever seen before. And there's a reason why lenses cost more than the frame body, you know, than the actual bodies. So
Yeah.
And they hold value forever.
yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's a weird investment because it's one of the few things after a certain point, the lens goes back up higher than it was when you bought it if you hold it long enough, if it's a good piece of glass.
Supply and demand, because people can't get it. It's like, oh, who's got and now you've got a high demand, and now you can charge more for it because there's not many of them around.
Oh yeah, some of those old weird Russian lenses that cost nothing when they're made. And those are
they look amazing.
Those anamorphics and all the weird adapted ones that you can find now that probably cost $50 when they were out because they were like toy lenses to them at the time.
Right.
Now, yeah.
That's where we should probably stop talking about them because the word's going to get out and they're all going to be gone.
But now
I did that when I got I have a Red Dragon, but I started with a Red One. But I mean, I have a PL mount when there's a budget, but I bought a whole set of Nikon lenses like 10 years ago. And so when I do small stuff, I put my Nikon mount on. And I mean, I bought everything from fisheye to 400, like 13 lenses, because they were like $300 on eBay, and I put a gear on and just made a system so it sort of works.
Jackpot.
But then I know, like now, I don't know how they are, but you can get these Chinese DZO lenses for like $1,000 a piece. I'm kind of curious how good they are.
I just tested. I had 4 on a shoot. I had the 2 kits of them, and they perform. I had them on the 12K Ursas, and they're shockingly good. I had them outside. Most of the shoots were outside, and we ran them on Ronin 2 and a Movi, one of each, and then one was on a slider, one was on a. I don't remember where the 4th one was. I think there's another Ronin or something. They look great. The 20 to 55 all the way out though, the edges are really a little wonky. So once you get a 22, it worked really well.
But the primes, are you used to the zooms or the primes you tested?
I was using the new zooms, the 22 to 55 and the whatever they do.
Yeah, because they have a whole set of primes that looks really good. I think they're full frame as well.
Okay.
So that's for like $8,000. You can have a complete set of prime lenses, like 7 lenses or something.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
So if you put the whole thing together, you can get a Komodo, a set of lenses. I mean, you get a Komodo with like a PL mount and those lenses, and you can get a M1 Mac Mini to run DaVinci, and for like, you have a complete studio that's just about the same quality as a big Hollywood production, and that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, technology's moving.
Okay.
Susan, are there any more questions?
Yeah, there's another question. A couple. Dan Harris, he says, hi, what are your thoughts on the Panasonic Lumix GH5 and that whole line? As a recent grad working as a PA and starting to put together a kit from scratch, it seems like a really attractive option, not looking for the latest, greatest.
You know, I'm a Lumix guy. I could probably answer that one. You know, I've used a lot of different Lumix cameras, all the way from the G7, G85, S1, and I would say the GH5, you know, I kind of skipped over that one and went to the S1 just because they came out with the S1. But the GH5 was a camera that I coveted for a long time, and it's still very capable to do. I mean, you can even use it as a webcam if you want to, but I mean, it'll put out some really awesome images, and you know, for what it can do in body, you still have to spend a lot of money on a lot of other cameras to be able to compete with the GH5. So I would say it's a great camera, and Matthew can probably say he sells a few of them used because they're great cameras.
Yeah, I actually just pulled it up. I didn't even see this listing yet. This is an insane picture, first of all. I just have to show you guys. So can you guys see that?
Nice.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's a listing. Oop. That's a listing for a GH5 kit for like $2,600.
That's awesome.
I mean, like sliders, tripods, cards, bags. I mean, multiple sliders, enormous microphones, you name it. And that's the GH5 with the 12 to 35 lens, which if you've used it before is fantastic kit lens. It's like the Fuji 18 to 55. Like there's just some kit lenses that are just phenomenal. Like Canon, was it the 24 to 105 f4? Like that's a workhorse, right? As a college student or someone just starting out, you can't go wrong with any of those options. So yeah, that one, like $2,600 with everything.
Yeah, especially when you consider the stabilization. Coming from like the G85, for instance, the stabilization on that thing is
We lost you.
We lost Glenn.
I think you need your mic, Glenn.
What he was saying though, the GH5 has dual IBIS with their native lens, like the 12 to 35. That has so it works together in tandem. So it's insane. It's insane the stability that you can get handheld with that camera. And when I went and shot, I think I was shooting something on a 1DX Mark II or something. I was like, my God, this is shaky. Couldn't get any steady footage out of it whatsoever. So for a beginner, that's a great option. Anything with, stabilization is good.
Yeah,
I feel like
great. So sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like anything nowadays, people always ask you like, what camera should I get? Whether that's stills or video. And I feel like anything in the last couple of years, man, it's gonna do a good job. Like I think, maybe stick with brand like lenses or brand, choose one and maybe stick with that. And that might be what you use. I think for my still work, I use Fuji, and I have a GFX that I use. And for our video work, we use the Red, and we've been using those kind of for a long time. But I think the big answer for me, my answer is always like anything you get in the next, in the last couple of years is going to look like great. I think, for me, when I grew up, I'm 40, and if I wish I had an iPhone when I was in high school or growing up, because you can do so much stuff with the phone, and even a computer. I think there was one computer when I was in high school, like at the library, and that was it.
I mean, the GH4 is a great camera. I mean, I've shot some stuff with Doritos on it, and what I've learned throughout, my career is that the cameras and the gear are going to change. It's really the operator behind it, because when you get one camera, you'll learn, this is good with low lighting. This one, I need a key and a fill. And so once you start to become a master in that realm, you'll be able to adjust and learn with each camera as you build your career. But I would focus on the fundamentals, knowing how to light and how to frame a shot, and then eventually graduating, because it makes no sense to go out and buy a Red if you don't have practical application of what to do and when to do it.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I would agree. Lighting is super important. I mean, you can take a very cheap camera these days. Like I still have the G7 for a reason. I can take that G7, and if I light a scene properly, I can get a pretty awesome image out of it, even though it's a 6-year-old camera now in 8-bit.
I mean, we've all seen those shot on iPhone things, and all the crazy stuff GoPro's done off cameras are that big.
Yeah.
Soderbergh did 2 movies on the iPhone, and they were on Netflix. So yeah.
Yeah.
But the size of the sensor does change what you can do. The larger sensor gives you the opportunity to have selective focus better than with the smaller chips. There's no question. I mean, you pick up a 1DX or one of these other cameras, and I mean, another thing, I'm an older guy. I mean, I grew up with a Nikon 35 millimeter camera, and I know what a 50 millimeter lens does in full frame. And I've always had to have my mind go crazy. Like, okay, what's the factor for this one? How
Equivalent,
do I
yeah.
make, so a 50 is a 35, right? Okay, so an 85 is a 50. So, if you're doing portraiture with with a full frame lens, a 50 millimeter, an 85 millimeter, or a 105 are the ones to go to. And that's how my brain works today.
Yeah.
And the background goes really nicely out of focus at a 2, at a 4. I mean, and things are still sharp. I mean, everybody speaks so highly of that Leica pop on still photos. The Leica pop, part of it is depth of field and having the subject and the eyes being in focus. So
Great camera.
I don't know. Everybody else has opinions about full frame versus Super 35, for instance. I mean, why should I get one over the other?
Depends what you're going to do with it, right? Like if you're going to have something that's got, I work on a lot of stuff that's visually, has a lot of visual effects. So I need as much room and resolution on that frame. So, each project is different. Obviously being a master of each, like, knowing what you're going to use it for, and then just utilizing what you have, for the most part, you can always make something great if you collaborate with your team, work with your DP, talk to your post guys about, workflow, what's going to be needed. And there's always a way to figure it out. That's what I love about this business, is that there's no set rule on how to do anything. And the fact that you can manipulate things and learn and collaborate to make it what you need it to be. So I think that's very important to keep aware as well.
Now the focus gets very hard if you're doing like a Steadicam shot on full frame 1.4. I've done this. I was on a TV show. They were doing that. You better have a really good AC because it's really tough. And they usually bring all this stuff now, light ranger and everything, because it's very difficult.
And a wireless follow focus.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. I mean, that's pretty much standard in the stuff I work. Everything is, I mean, I've been doing this a long time too. So when I started, we had to bring our follow focus, but now the stuff I work is just normal. Everybody has a Preston for every camera. And
I love it.
So,
Yeah, that again goes back to like what you're doing, because if you are doing a lot of gimbal work, it's probably best to go with a smaller sensor so you can keep everything in focus. But if you need to go wide often, it's probably best to go with like a full frame, because you start to go with Super 35, micro 4/3 or something like that, and you go really wide, you start getting a lot of distortion, things like that. So it goes back to what are you doing with it?
Yeah. I mean, micro 4/3 in my opinion, like run and gun, it comes in super handy. Like if it's you by yourself, that's always a safer bet, because it's easier to keep it in focus. If you're just on a screen that big and doing it by the barrel, you only have so much.
All right, Susan, you got some more questions?
Yeah. Here's a question from Kevin, touching a little bit on what you guys were kind of talking about a moment ago. He says, what means M43 S35 full frame in the practice besides lens value and how much light they can capture?
I think we just about covered everything.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And one more question from Kevin. This is for Enrique. He says, hey, Enrique, could you tell us about the advantages of global shutter in the red Komodo?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I've had an opportunity to really test out the global shutter as much as maybe, I don't do a lot of sports stuff or, falling cars or any high action type stuff. So I'm not sure if I can give you a definitive answer on that. I know the rolling shutter is great. I've definitely shot stuff out of a car, like a vehicle or somebody walking and things like that, and that's helped prevent some of that wobble in the background. But I'm not sure if that's like if I'd buy a camera necessarily because of the global shutter, right? I think that's a great plus to have in the Komodo for sure. For me, the Komodo was more about size and the advantage of having just a small little build with the red codec and being able to kind of have the red sensor and all that sort of stuff built in. So
I would just add for the global shutter, you're really going to see that like if you shoot helicopter blades or a fan or something that's quick moving, or that's the only time. So 90% of the time it's not an issue, but for those few shots, that's when it really helps. And if you're out of a car and you'll see the bending lines. Yeah. So that's really what it's good for.
Yeah, we did some testing when we first got the Stormtrooper, and we did some videos on our YouTube channel, and we were doing the global shutter tests, and even just a car going by where there was a rail in the background. So it's not just like helicopter blades that's the best example, like a fan, right? Where you're going to really see the wobble. But you could really see without the global shutter, you could see the rail. It was like a country road with like a rail on the side, and it was like curved, completely curved. But on the Komodo, it was perfectly straight.
That was a locked off shot?
No, it's handheld.
Oh, wow.
So it was
even more impressive.
It was like follow the car, right?
Right?
It's on our YouTube channel. So the guy who asked the question, you can check it out at the Gear Focus YouTube channel. There's a shot, where, we're actually following the car. But I think it's just an amazing camera. That, we keep saying it again and again. Technology is moving so fast. It's so fun. I mean, Bruce, you were talking to me, you started on 35 millimeter film. So did I. Was in a dark room, when it was light out, and I came out when it was dark out. And that's how I started too. But we're moving at such a fast pace. It's so exciting because, like Glenn said, you could buy a camera that's 5 years old and produce amazing content with it. For me, the one bit of advice for a new person, whatever you choose, sleep and eat with that camera.
Yeah.
Like, know that camera. I used to literally lay in bed at night and study the menu, because I'd get on a shoot and I'd go, where's that setting? Now with the digital screens, like, where is that? Set up your quick menus. Like the GH5 has the your favorites, right? Like your 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. So you can have it set to 4K 60. You can have it set to 23:9:8 for regular things that you're shooting, whatever you're shooting in. Get to know your camera and stick with it. And I think, who was it? Enrique, you were saying you shoot Red and Leica for still.
Fujifilm,
right?
yeah, Fujifilm, but yeah.
But then it's like, why change? Yeah, you might need to use something else and play around with something else, but like, learn something and learn it really well and know that ecosystem. Sony works for a lot of people. Sony's a great camera. The A7 III is still the top selling used camera on Gear Focus. A7 III. Like, people are buying and selling them every day of the week. It's crazy.
Well, the Sony's really great for multi-purpose, right? So if you're shooting video and stills, it's like, you don't want to have two different cameras, it's like,
yeah.
It all depends, really. I mean, once again, it always boils down to what you're using it for and how you're going to use it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the same thing with my S1. I got it because it's a hybrid for both video and photo. I could take almost like 96 megapixel high resolution shots with it, and I can do 4K 60 in 10-bit, so I can do a lot with that. But I can tell you, I do wish it had global shutter, because I'm in Florida, and if I wanted to simulate a hurricane outside, all I have to do is stick it out my car while I'm driving.
All right, we got about 5 minutes left. Let me just throw this out here. Why do Hollywood cinematographers tend to prefer the Arri over the Red?
That a lot has to do with marketing. It's like, if I can ask anybody, like, why do you buy one brand or another? It's all advertising. It's also because the Arri's been around for like 100 years, so people know it. Red was something new that showed up like 15 years ago, but it's been picking up a lot. I mean, if you look at it, it's pretty much, this whole high-end world is owned by Alexa's Red and the Sony Venice. Actually, the Sony Venice is the first Sony camera that broke through. They've been trying, and they started digital cinema and all this, but this is the first one that broke through. And I don't think it makes a difference. I've talked to many DPs who said they've tested all three. It really, if you're shooting raw, it doesn't really matter. So it just becomes like a personal thing and what you know, and then everybody's like, oh, he used it, so I'm going to use it. So there's a lot. But I've seen all of those cameras doing Steadicam. They're all around. And remember that Panavision built their DXL based on a Red, and Panavision knows they service most of the Hollywood shoots. Most of the time when I work on a big shoot, the gear comes from Panavision.
Yeah.
So
And it goes
I've
back to
worked with-
lenses too. I think that's like we
Well,
mentioned
yeah.
earlier. I think lenses make such a big difference in everything. that
Well, the
you put
the
whatever
choice
body
is
you want.
amazing at Panavision. If you go to Panavision, you just have so much more. But yeah.
I mean, I work, since I live here in Los Angeles, I work a lot with like top color houses like Company 3, Apache Color. And when I speak to the colorists, they generally do like the ARRI, they say, because of the CMOS and range. But, when Red first came out, it was like people didn't know that they had to shoot it raw. So they would bake in a LUT and stuff, and then the colorists wouldn't have as much flexibility during color sessions. So once people started to figure out, oh, okay, we can shoot it raw, really flat, and then make sure it's properly exposed so that later on in color, they can bring it out. So generally speaking, when it comes out of ARRI, it comes out a little bit, you don't have to do like at best light dailies or a first run of color. And Red obviously worked around that with their LUTs and things of that nature, but it's really up to the cinematographer because I mean, you can't, if you have a really good DP, you won't know which camera he shot it on.
That's true. Good. Anybody else?
Yeah, good DP and an amazing colorist. They'll make anything look like anything else.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, like going back to like those shot on iPhone, Apple commercials, they're going hard in post to make it look way better than it ever should. These things are out. Same with like DJI when they do like their drone announcement. I mean, a Mavic looks amazing, but a Mavic never looks that good unless you send it to someone who is that good.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you shoot it correctly with correct lighting too, so that they had
and they also
$100,000 worth of lighting gear for the iPhone movie commercial.
Yeah, and the guy who designed the sensor on the field, making sure everything is exposed the way it is for that particular thing.
Yeah,
I mean, you guys saw the spot that I believe it was David Licht did for Apple with the snow on the iPhone. But did you see the size of the crew though? It's like, I mean, that's bigger than most of us probably have on our shoot. So it's like, you shot on the iPhone, but
My favorite is when those photos leak out after the fact. It's shot on the iPhone, but you have like a real lens attached to it. Like, oh, they put an anamorphic lens in front of it and made it just work. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what they really did on this giant slider with an iPhone.
Yeah. Well, one thing I could say about like the iPhone stuff that kind of maybe scares me or bums me out a little bit is what they're doing with AI. I mean, I think it's cool, but at the same time, I love my craft and I love what I do. I like the art of it, and I like being able to control everything, every aspect of what I'm doing. I don't use any autofocus, nothing. And what LiDAR and all that is starting to do is really changing things to where they're making these cameras do a lot of stuff on their own, and adjusting dynamic range in the camera and stuff like that. And it really makes me think, man, what's the future coming to with cameras in our craft?
I just had that same thought, like the AI side of what's happening with the phones. How are manufacturers going to start applying that into real cinema cameras and photography cameras with face recognition and depth of field changing, like what's actually possible, but what's going to come first? Because right now it's all about resolution. Everything has been 4K, 6K, 8K, 12K. Like we're going to tap out on Ks pretty soon. We're going to be Nolan Ryan with the perfect strikeout record, and then we're going to go to something else.
That's the low light battle. That was a fun one.
That was a good one. Yeah. Low light battle, dynamic range, right?
Yeah. I'm ready for another round of that.
Another round of that.
For sure.
I love low light. In fact, question before we get off topic of the ARRI, because I never got to shoot or edit ARRI's footage, but Red just plays like butter. I mean, the Red Kodak, they knocked out of the park. That science that they have. For you guys that have worked with ARRI's footage, is it similar?
Yeah, that's pretty much all the same. You put that in DaVinci or whatever you're coloring, it doesn't matter. It's actually a little quicker because you don't have to decompress it.
Okay.
Uncompressed.
Issue, right?
So it's a little less But today, I mean, that was a problem earlier. Today, the computers, like, as I said, these new Apple computers, I've heard, I haven't tested them, can play at 6K red footage in real time. So
They can.
we're getting to the
in
point.
Resolve, yeah.
Yeah, and that's also maybe anybody who's starting, you can get DaVinci for free. It's worth trying, even if you don't want to become a colorist. If you color stuff, then also you know how to talk to colorists and you understand what you can do with your footage. So it's really good to just play a little with that and get a feel for that.
Plus,
Agreed.
if you got a Blackmagic 6K, you're gonna have to have Resolve if you shoot RAW, because you're gonna have to use that to transcode it. So it's like same thing with Red. It's like, you know, in the past it was like, oh my God, I got these big R3D files. What am I? Oh man, we have to transcode for 3 days before we can start.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I often make dailies because then I can put a look in already the way I want it to look, and I get a feel what I did. So,
but I mean, that's the right way to do it, right? Because
yeah,
you know, like Glenn was saying, it's a process, right? So us as collaborative filmmakers, we really enjoy the process of filmmaking versus like I have a client and he's like, no, we have to start editing on set. Oh man, you know, so it's like all these other issues that kind of snowball and affect all the other issues down the road.
Yeah.
well, I mean, I come from film, so you didn't even get your film back the next day in transfer. So
Yeah, the recorder decks, right?
well, whatever it was the music videos we did. I've been doing music videos in the 90s already. They would go to Digibeta or something and then go do they do the look in the transfer, and that was it. You did the look when you transferred, not after the cut.
Well, you
All
know,
right, everybody. Oh, sorry to interrupt you. This is awesome discussion. We can come back in just a second. We need to do our trivia question first, if we can, real quick, so people can win this great prize. So we'll do our trivia time, and then after we'll fit some more discussion and questions in real quick, and then we'll go to our wrap up. So here is our trivia question. What listing displays first on the shoots.video for Portland, Oregon? Now, please type your answers in the chat box. The first correct answer will get a $50 B&H photo gift card. So go for it, everybody. I'll read the question one more time. What listing displays first on the shoots.video for Portland, Oregon? Okay, now somebody needs to play the Jeopardy ding dong song as we're waiting. So here we have a winner. The first person with the correct answer, Arnav Bali, it looks like. Yes, Arnav Bali, congratulations. You win with the answer, which is the Photold Pictures LLC. We did have some runners up with the correct answer, but they were the first ones. So congratulations, Arnav Bali. And now we can fit a couple more questions in, I think, before we go to our wrap up. So John, do you have something else?
Well, I got a couple here. I wanted to talk about the evolution of the digital cinema cameras in the future, and we kind of touched on that. So if somebody wants to jump in on that, or how would you describe your perfect camera? So either one of those two questions, if somebody wants to jump in and kind of fill us in on that.
Enrique, take it.
You know, I think I've been thinking about like, what do I want in a maybe perfect camera? I think the only thing I feel is always missing is, you know, especially more in the cinema line, is like built-in NDs, right? I think, you know, like the C70 is one that we didn't really touch on that I feel is probably another great camera that's just coming out that also has a lot of the things that are built in that, you know, it doesn't have RAW, but, you know, some of those things that are just make it super compact and portable. But like NDs, I mean, Red doesn't have any NDs. I think Ari has NDs, but all the C100 or the C lines of the Canon have built-in NDs, and like a small little nitpick thing, but I feel like, you know, maybe this day and age they should have built-in NDs in most cinema cameras.
Now they're coming out with the mounts, right?
Yeah.
So that have the filters in them for, you know, like the Canon RF mount converter. And
it sits in between that, and I've seen that too. And but I, you know, there's one thing to have it just like built in. And I used to use the C series before. I had C300, and like I love just pushing a little button, and it's inside you, and it comes right up. So
that new Sony FX6 has electronic ND, and the autofocus on that thing is insane.
Once you use the variable ND, you'll never go back. I honestly, you could set auto variable ND and it will match as you walk through a doorway into darkness. I mean, it's phenomenal.
And it's stepless too, so you don't even notice it.
Yeah.
And that's needed. That's how you can also tell, like for me, is like, you know, the way a shot is exposed when it goes from outside to inside. You know, you know, this level of professionalism, and you know, when you first start out, you're like, oh, I don't know how to do that, or you know, so like as you develop, you will get better and better, and your work will look better and better.
Yeah, I always try and preach to people like, let's just try and get the right in camera, right? Let's not try and you know, rely on post or anything. Like if it's going to take us another 10, 15 seconds to put a different ND filter on, let's do it so that we don't have to worry about adjusting f-stop or whatever to compensate for it, right? Let's get a consistent look and feel for everything.
Yeah, one thing I would say that I think my perfect camera would have, there's a lot of things that I would like to have, but I know the Reds use like the Red Mags and the Black Magics, they all have the ability to record straight to SSD, but I wish more cameras, especially since now a lot of them have USB Type-C, I wish they would all record to SSDs because they're so much cheaper and you can just hold so much more data than, using CFast cards or SD cards.
Yeah, that's been a huge one for me. I mean, most of my cameras are Blackmagic. Like I'll do a shoot, have like a T5 plugged in, and when it's over, like, here you go. Like it doesn't have to go to my computer. Just it's like, hey, don't lose that on the drive back, and like I'm done. It just saves a step, and and then they can edit on that drive and bring it back to me, and it's like that. It's so much easier than like, hold on, let me dump this card. It's like, oh, just grab another drive. Like you could actually go to Best in a pinch. You could actually go to Best Buy and get one on like a CFast. You're not going to get one in a pinch.
Yeah. Well, that's where it's going to, like Red and all those guys, because like everything with the Red is like proprietary, so you got to buy their thing. So like that old model of doing business is going to be passe and outdated very soon. What Blackmagic's doing with those drives. The DIT's job is easy. Okay, thanks for the drive. And then you walk off and then you just keep shooting versus, oh man, we got to dump this car. We got to wait. Oh my God, it's going to take 20, 30 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
here's hard drive 1 and hard drive 2. There you go.
Well, I like to make 2 copies right away on set, but I back up to SSD drives now from my Red. So then that's pretty fast. That's not really a time problem for me.
Well, that's something that they've developed over time, right? Because at first,
no, I mean, I buy those internal. I have like a dual dock, so as soon as I'm done with the card, I put it in and dump it to 2 SSD drives.
Awesome.
And then I'll give one to the client right away, and I'll take one home to make dailies or something. But I want to always have at least 2 to start. So if there's one and that thing gets lost, the whole shoot's gone. So
That goes back again to Blackmagic disrupting things, because I remember when Red took a lot of heat when they found out that those $1,000 Red mags were really not what they were cracked up to be when they opened them up.
Toshiba drives or something.
Yeah.
Like but they work pretty well. I've had mine for years. Like, I mean, after trying an update, but those things keep working. The stuff is very reliable. So for me, these cameras work great. I don't really have any complaints. I mean, if I look at my 5-year-old Dragon and the new ones, the only real difference is low light. That's the big step from the Dragon to like the Monstro and the Gemini is that. But I'm usually working with lights and setup. I don't really do docks, so that's not really an issue for me.
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong. I would love to be working on Red. I just, wish their prices would come down comparable to other people's.
Yeah, it's not just the price, the sticker tag of the body. You're talking another 4 or 5K on. Batteries, media, whatever. However you're going to rig it out. So.
The proprietary part's just what's hard too with that particular brand for me. Just being confined, like, I can only use the things that are made for it. But it does produce an incredible image.
Yeah. Well, the Komodo,
I'm hoping
the Komodo is the first step, right?
Exactly.
The Komodo was definitely a cool pivot.
Yeah,
the camera was actually designed as a stunt camera first for Hollywood productions.
And so that they can crash and beat up and not have to worry about it. But I mean, to your point, Enrique, I believe the Komodo does have built-in NDs. Is that right, Sergey?
No, there's options. So there's all these people making mounts for it, and I saw some of the people making the PL mount have one with built-in because I've been looking what's out for it.
Yeah.
And for me, I'd have to get an external like PL mount that's rigid, because otherwise you have a wobbly RF mount.
Yeah.
All right.
good.
One more comment, and then we got to go, folks.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anybody else?
No? All right.
It's been fun, guys. It's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great chatting.
Yeah, it was
All
nice
right.
meeting everyone.
Well,
Yeah, it's been really cool.
Thank
It's
you,
great.
everyone. Great info and advice. And also, thanks for tolerating the fact that Susan and I shoot a whole TV show off the iPhone, and you didn't try to kill us. So that's
Hey, it's all. They say the best camera is the camera you have.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
One that's in your hand.
So before we go, I want everyone on the panel just to tell us where we can find them on social media and other places. Let's start with Glenn.
So you can find me on YouTube. That's just YouTube/Glenn Reed. Glenn's with one N, and it's at FullResGlenn on Instagram.
All right.
My website's fullresolutionmedia.com.
Super. Sergey.
I actually just posted my website, but my website is there, sergeyfranklin.com. I just put it in the chat so people can just look up my stuff there.
All right. Super. Bruce.
I'm going to do the same thing. I'm at lightraves.com.
Now we're all just going to follow along.
All right.
That's good.
Sahir.
Yes. You can find me on my website, which is sahirchampion.com, SAHIR champion.com. And my Instagram is at S7 Studios, or Sahir, SAHIR, Self-Savior as well on Instagram.
All right. And Kevin?
My soundstage is mix1soundstage.com, which I threw in the chat, and my Instagram is just Kevin Stuff.
Super. Matthew.
Just gearfocus.com. You can get to all our social media and everything, and you can sign up for free and start buying and selling gear.
All right. And Enrique, wrap us up.
Yep. My production company is mezafilms.com, and then you can see my personal stuff on Instagram, on my full name, Enrique Meza. So I'll throw that in the chat as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. John and I are Undercover Jet Setter. It's a TV show on travel, food, wine, mixology, and golf. As you heard, we shoot it entirely on the iPhone. We use the iPhone 11 Pro. I know somebody had asked about that, and we are looking forward to using the 12 because we did hear that camera is about 80% better on the 12. So we would love it if you could subscribe to our show on YouTube at Undercover Jet Setter. I put it in the chat. Also, it's youtube.com/Undercover Jet Setter.
And to add insult to injury, we wrote a book called The TV Studio in Your Hand to teach people how to shoot off the iPhone. It's also on Amazon. So if you get a chance, take a look at that. Hey, we have had a great time. Thank you to the panel. Thank you to everybody who's been listening here. And hopefully we'll do it again. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good
Good
night.
night, everybody.
Thanks. It was
Amazing
great.
panel.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You might be looking at Shoot Stop Video and thinking, so how does this all work? Is this about A, setting up the whole crew for me, B, just giving me options and having me handle it, or C, something in between? Well, it's D, all of the above. To put it simply, we're here to help you in any way that we can to get the crew and talent you need for your next production. We believe that every level of video production can benefit from a well-maintained list of qualified crew members for every position. This goes for pre-pro, on-set, and for post. Every project is different, so if you need a producer to help manage the decision-making process, then we can totally do that. If you're already a producer and want to build your own crew from scratch, then go for it. We're here to make your next production a success. And if you are crew or talent looking for producers that want you, then you've come to the right place. Sign up now, and also leave a referral for any solid people that you know that are already on here. Thank you for considering Shoot Stop Video, and happy shooting.